From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the business of esports. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports Podcast. I am Paul Dowalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for leaving those 5-star ratings and reviews. Thank you for all the love you show the podcast, telling your friends about it. If you're new here, if it's your first time here, welcome. We love having you. Enjoy the podcast. If you love it at the end of this, please go leave that review. It helps others to find the podcast, whether it's on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or if you watch us on video, any kind of review, rating, subscribe, follow, you name it, is appreciated. Jimmy, how's it going? How you doing this week?
Really excited this week, Paul. Happy to be here as always. Taking my first work vacation in probably 3 years this weekend, going to Chicago where it's currently snowing and going to watch a Chicago Bears football game. So I'm excited for that.
Your first week vacation and you're doing it on my time? Like, what's going on here? You waited to be working for me to take your first vacation in years?
Booked the flight right after I signed the contract and haven't looked back.
This is not a good look, Jimmy. It's really not a good look. Yeah. This feels like slacking. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, our fans will be happy. I'm not going to miss any of the Wednesday recordings, so they'll be happy for that, and that's really what matters.
The question is, are you bringing a gaming laptop, or is this not that kind of weekend?
So I actually reached at the bottom of my lowest, darkest drawer and found my Nintendo Switch. I dusted it off. I checked the integrity of it. It seems to be okay. Updated the software, downloaded PGA 2K21, downloaded Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Remastered, downloaded Mario Party, and I think I'm going to give it a shot.
It's been a very odd selection of games, first of all. Second of all, why was your Switch down at the bottom of your drawer?
Because I just didn't, once I went full time into PC gaming, I just didn't enjoy it as much. I feel like
so why take a lot of those Switch? Games. Why not do mobile gaming?
Well, 2K21 didn't come out, or recently came out, so I'm really interested in playing that. I love those golf games. Something about, I don't know, just driving it 300 yards when I can't do that in real life. I got, for those of you watching, I have my clubs in the back. I can't remember the last time.
Those are the worst sim games, though, because there's nothing that's the same as like actual golf, right? Like clicking a meter when it hits like a certain point. Like, I'm not sure. This is not really simulation, right? Let's be honest.
It's less about playing golf and more about unlocking really cool cleats and gloves and the accessories for my avatar.
Are there cosmetics for
everything you can think of? And I only hope that I can then pull him into the metaverse and use him as my digital representation.
I just feel like it doesn't translate. Part of golf is the environmental. Like, I feel like that's the hardest. Golf will be the last sim game to get sort of ultra realistic, I feel like, right? Because you need these great outdoor, maybe not. Maybe
well,
VR
they have these great VR and they have these great setups. The hotel I'm going to in Chicago has a Topgolf like digital room, like a suite with one of those, things that you hit into the wall. You see like at those big arcade centers. I don't know. I feel like
and Topgolf has dabbled in esports, right? Like there's interest there. Yeah, it's a good point. I still don't know if bringing the Switch is the way to go, but
Well, we'll see. It's going to be the first time. I got to justify it, because the Steam Deck got delayed another 2 months, so I got to justify
we'll talk about on the live stream.
We will. Yeah.
Which is a good reminder, everyone listening. We do a live stream 8:30 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday. It's all the news that we don't do on the podcast anymore. We now have a bigger cast. We do the news live with you guys. It's a lot of fun. So anywhere you find our content, pretty much you can tune into that live stream. So Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, it gets live streamed everywhere. And it's a lot of fun. So we will talk about Steam Deck actually later. Before that, though, we have an absolutely amazing guest on the podcast this week, Jimmy. We have none other than Wes Byrd, who is the CEO at Skullz. Wes, welcome to the Business of Esports podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Wes, for our audience that doesn't know maybe much about you or Skullz, or would love for you to give them your background, your story, how you got into gaming, why you got into gaming, what you're focused on at Skullz, what you guys are all about, what you do, what you're excited about in the future, just the Wes and Skullz gaming story.
That's a lot to talk about. We'll be here for a
We
minute.
got time. People love this.
Well, I guess going way back, we just celebrated this past weekend, a few days ago, the 20th anniversary of Skullz.
Congrats.
20th anniversary, yeah. It's been a minute. Yeah, we, the name Skullz came from a gaming group we called a guild back in the day that we started, and I was hosting LAN parties at my house, playing a bunch of Counter-Strike 1.6, and when Battlefield came out with its first game release of Battlefield 1942. That was a big hit at the LAN parties, and other mods for other games, including like Day of Defeat. So yeah, we were playing LAN parties mainly because back then we didn't have the best internet, and they didn't host all these game servers. So we had to have LAN parties. So yeah, we started doing LAN parties, and after a couple of years, we said we should name ourselves, create a name for this thing. And one of my buddies was like, Skullz would be cool. How about Skullz with a Z? And so yeah, we said, yeah, that's a great idea. So me being the web developer, that's what I've been doing for the past 25 years, is developing websites and applications and e-commerce. And so I registered Skullz.net. So Skullz.com was taken at the time, but I registered, and that's how we decided that November was the 20th anniversary, because you can look at Skullz.net registration, and it has the time, the year and the date that it was registered. So registered Skullz.net over 20 years ago now. So it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Wes, what is, for those who maybe don't know, maybe you could talk a little bit about what Skullz does, what you guys are focused on today, how it's evolved from, that guild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started out as a guild for years. We just had LAN parties and hung out, and I created this really awesome website. Back then it was awesome. That had a database of members and games and reviews and all kinds of stuff. We gathered up a pretty big following even before esports was esports. But over time, I was doing a lot of web development and e-commerce, and working on enterprise level e-commerce, big brands, with these big brands making, $120 million a year just through their web portal, their web e-commerce portal. And I'm like, the power of a brand is the kind of the direction I wanted to kind of lean into. And so after working at big names like OtterBox and PetSmart and others, I was like, I want to turn Skullz into a brand name. So, and of course, we've been gamers for all these years. And so let's turn Skullz into a brand. And we did that as only a couple of years ago. In 2019, we registered Skullz Incorporated and decided to come to the market with a brand. And we've got some amazing graphic designers, developers, IT guys. We're a bunch of geeks and creatives, like a lot of gamers. And so we came together and decided to jump into the apparel market. And we also made some chairs like this one, and some backpacks, and applied to register Skullz as a trademark in those categories, like apparel, bags, and furniture. And that trademark is finally registered, and that's going to be technically official probably just in a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to that.
No small feat. Congratulations.
Yeah. It took a couple of years. Can't believe how long it takes.
Wes, could you talk a little bit about the Skullz business model? Like, is the idea long term? And I'm talking your big vision for it, right? Mm-hmm. Is it to create Skullz as a brand that will be sort of like a Gucci? Like, is the idea to make it a luxury brand? Is it the idea to make it a mass, like mainstream brand that sells, apparel and gear and furniture and stuff like that? Or is it to be sort of the back end for other brands and produce sort of merch for them?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of that right now. So we started out because as an unknown brand with a business plan and a strategy to become that brand name, more like I would say Under Armour, Nike, Adidas. Okay. Those brands are to athletics. And where Skullz has a target of being that for gaming and esports. So we started doing that in the performance space in esports, and targeting high schools, colleges, and that. Main reason is because, all right, we want to get into the heads of the youth, and as they grow, and graduate and become professionals in the space years down the road, they'll have this name brand in their head, and so we want to target high schools, and we've done a ton of high schools jerseys. So like Nike, you see Nike swoosh on an NFL team's jersey or a college team's jersey, and we figured, okay, let's be that. So we'll create amazing designs, and that's one of the huge differentiators I think that we stand in the space. Because there's other jersey companies, and I wouldn't call us a jersey company, but we do that. We do a lot of it, and we create the best designs. That's the thing, is we want epic designs, and where kids in high school can feel like a pro. And we have right now, we have a lot of colleges, high schools, and pro teams. The latest pro team we signed is Ghost Gaming. Really excited about that.
Wow.
And so Ghost Gaming, we do all their merchandise. But another kind of an odd angle to Skullz is me and my background being e-commerce and website design and development, bringing that to these partners. So if you go to ghostgaming.com or ghostgaming.gg, then it will take you to their site, which is fully managed, hosted by us. So we did the website design, and it's all e-commerce. It's a full e-commerce platform. So all of the merchandise is in there. So we take it from the front end shopping cart where people can do the purchasing of the merchandise. We produce the merchandise. We fulfill the merchandise. It's like a holistic solution for a team or a school that no matter kind of at what level you are, if you're high school and you just want a merch store on Skullz.com, we can do that. That's easy. If you're a big pro team, and you want a more dedicated, your brand to be the thing that people come to and see, well, then you can get your dedicated website, and we can make it look awesome, just like we do all the jerseys. And then powered by Skullz at the bottom, we'll throw up a partnership, social media partnership, and all the merchandise will have a little, our version of a Nike swoosh or a brand mark,
Wes, that's an interesting sort of path, right? Because, and I'm curious, are these activations, call it like these build outs or these projects with the esports teams like you did with Ghost, are those one-offs in your mind? Like each one's unique and different and you build out for each one? Or is the goal to become more of a platform? So where you're the Shopify for the gaming industry, right? Is that kind of the bigger long-term vision?
We don't really kind of cookie cutter anything. But platform, I don't think is the right word. We actually utilize Shopify as the e-commerce platform of choice because it can be kind of scaled all the way from, very small budget all the way up to enterprise level. And, like I said before, my profession as an e-commerce architect working on, the big platforms like Salesforce Commerce Cloud but Shopify has a decent, enterprise platform in Shopify Plus. And so I just picked that platform for web design, development, and hosting. Because of that, it kind of can scale. We can do like a little backyard, like the old school Skullz guys. Those little guilds that are starting up right now, and they got 20 buddies putting together, and they want to host a cool site with their merch. You can do that pretty relatively inexpensively, even using us. We want everyone to look like pros, whether they're high schools, some little gaming guild guys, or the pros,
So you have no preference, like if you could have it one way or the other, would you rather have every big esports team on the planet, like the top 10 esports teams on the planet working with you guys?
Absolutely.
Or would you rather have 10,000, colleges, high schools, smaller groups that are all working with you? Like, do you want the long tail, or is the goal to go after the 10 biggest, or both maybe?
Yeah, I would say both. I don't think we'll never kind of flip our nose at the high school market, no matter how big we kind of scale to. But at the same time, working on big projects is, beneficial for everyone. So we could take on, we'd love to jump on like a tier 1 team and partner with them to like a 100 Thieves or Evil Genius. I've seen a lot of big names do e-commerce wrong. I've been in this business for a long time, and I know how to do e-commerce right on an enterprise scale. And we're entering into a space where e-commerce, esports can be considered on kind of an enterprise level at certain spaces. At the same time, not so much in others. And I've seen, I was particularly, I don't want to call anybody out, but I guess I was on Evil Genius's e-commerce site about a year ago, and it was terrible. And I was going to things and I couldn't buy anything, and there were pages that were just throwing up 404s. And I was like, wow, here is one of the big teams that, this site should be, there should be some budget here, there should be some budget thrown in it. And I think a lot of times, the esports team, they want to focus on their esports and their business. And then they kind of, there's this e-commerce, and they do want to put time and money in the merch, but then they don't really put time and money into the platform to sell the merch. And right now we're in a world where e-commerce kind of is where you are gonna sell your merch, and hopefully that'll change soon as we get back in person events. But it's anyway. Yeah, I could talk on that soapbox for a while.
I mean, I do have a couple questions about, we have so many listeners that are businesses of varying sizes and that do have these needs, or maybe don't know that these are issues that they need to address with their own businesses, without, as you mentioned, Wes, without pointing names or calling anybody out directly. You mentioned broken links, you mentioned insufficient, I think, funding behind someone's e-commerce platform. With your 20 years of experience plus in this space, just any other low-hanging fruit that you can offer as insight to that audience member that's like, what else should I be looking for with my own e-commerce or with my own brand that I might be missing, just from your experience, maybe the most common 3 or 4 things besides the broken links and the insufficient funding, if you will.
Well, I think it's really interesting how in the esports space right now, brands, or I say brands, but their teams want to be their own brand, and that's good in a way. But at the same time, to build your own entire brand out of your name, I guess it's kind of interesting because that's different from your typical sports type of business, right? Where you're selling jerseys or you're selling hats, whatever. Yeah, you want your team name on the hat, but there's a hat brand on the side of the hat, and there you want to sell your brand, and you're selling your brand, your jerseys with the team logos and the design on it, but then there's a brand swoosh or an icon on it. And I think that's a better approach for establishing partners to do your merchandise in this space, because I think those brands that have tried to go holistic with, hey, we're going to become our own brand, they realize that they've found out how expensive that is, how hard it is, and how much energy that takes. Whereas Skullz can kind of holistically take on that burden and bring the knowledge and the understanding and the technology to kind of make that work. So 2 different kind of approaches, and we're definitely bringing something different to the space.
Jimmy, you said you had another question before I jump in here.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Paul, for following. And we got a little off track with that second train of thought I had, so that was my delay there. Because we had talked about, Wes, your appreciation, I suppose, and support of different, businesses that aren't just that aren't just tier 1, high school in particular. And I know from our personal relationship, and by the way, it's good to see you again after Las Vegas a few weeks ago in person. But I know from our relationship that you do quite a bit with, I'm going to butcher the name here, but the Scholastic Foundation or board in your home state. I wanted to, just to give you the opportunity to speak to that, I suppose, in terms of not just the business side of things, but how you intertwine, I suppose, your other board activities and capacities with your business, where you, offer those resources, where you, offer yourself in that philanthropic capacity, but how that all does tie back to doing good business and kind of, I suppose, meeting your community and meeting your customers in places that are important to them and in foundations, I suppose, that are important to them.
Sure. Yeah. So I helped co-founded the Georgia Scholastic Esports Foundation in the state of Georgia. And in doing that, the main reason I wanted to do that is to kind of help the youth in the space. Kids are growing up playing games, and it's gotten a little out of hand. As we all know, things get toxic, kids become toxic, and then they take that into their adult lives and into their personal lives outside of games. And so I started to seek. I guess this goes all the way back. Let me kind of take it back a little bit, because Skullz, from day one, I said we've been playing LAN parties for 20 years. 20 years ago, even hosting these LAN parties, we established family-friendly rules of war, because at these events, we had kids. We all, we were family, and we wanted other parents to let their kids come and do the LAN party. And so we've always been kind of family friendly. And I just have seen over these past 20 years, things just getting worse and worse and worse, and that kind of going away. And sportsmanship is has been traditionally just kind of non-existent. So that's what brought me to seeking the high school market and trying to figure out ways that I could help influence kids in that way, in a positive way. And so you can see on our website, go to the About Us, and it describes, our mission statement. We want to be not just in the space. We're not just here to be a brand in the space, and but to also be a positive influence into the gaming space. And so figuring high school is the best way to do that. So yeah, we partnered up, created GSEF, which is actually an affiliation of NASEF, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. So each state in the U.S. and now the world can be affiliate and create an affiliate, which can help high schools in their state to have curriculum which helps educate kids through the esports curriculums and ideas. And so I love that idea, using esports and gaming is like a shiny object to educate kids. And so doing that in high schools, as high schools come online with esports programs, why not use that as a way to educate? So that's why I created the affiliate in Georgia for for NASEF. And even recently, and this is kind of an interesting take. In fact, there's a high school that my kids go to, and I wanted to try out this whole concept. The state of Georgia is actually the first state that I think the very first state to allow esports as a curriculum to be authorized to give credit toward a kid's graduation. So there, you can take an esports class in the state of Georgia as an elective that would count towards your credits to graduate high school. And this year being the first year that they allowed that happen, I was very interested, obviously being involved with GSEF as well. I actually am teaching the esports class at my kids' high school. So for an hour a day, I drop everything and I go to a local high school and teach kids esports. And it's cool because we're teaching the kids. We're not playing games and just teaching esports, but we turned the thing into a business. I want to create entrepreneurs, create social media managers, create all the jobs that are kind of around the esports ecosystem. So we created a manager, a social media manager, a creative director. So we had all these jobs, and all the kids get these jobs, and they're creating this business, and so it's really exciting. So yeah, involved in education, esports, kids. It's more than just really a plan to, get in the brains of kids. Really, it's I'm more very adamant about kind of helping the youth in the space.
Wes, you're not going to get any pushback from Jimmy and I. The reality is both of us teach business of esports classes at different universities. But I'm always curious about the high school level. And to me, it's a fascinating ecosystem there. There was a ton of hype a few years ago around Playverse, right? They raised $10 zillion. They seem to have sort of a string of many unhappy customers, and then they've sort of disappeared from the conversation. I'm curious, given how sort of close to the ground you are, what is your opinion in terms of the state of high school esports, right? Like, is there opportunity? Is it thriving? Is it suffering? Is it like, I'm curious how you would characterize that segment of the market and where you think the opportunities are there.
Well, I think right now, maybe 10% of high schools have a decent esports program. And I could say, 2 years ago, it probably 1%, I don't know. And then I think 5 years from now, that 10% can grow to 50% and maybe 60 or 70%. So I think there's a huge opportunity, even in business, in the high school market, because it's at the, we're at the kind of beginning of that curve. And as things grow, but what, I guess the bad news is that kind of causes a lot of, businesses battling it out to try and get their piece of that pie as it expands. And when we come to those platforms like Playverses and others, I guess Playverses kind of had some buy-in for some big investment money, and then they kind of fell flat in their delivery and business approach, potentially. I don't know. And so, there's definitely opportunity. I think there's a couple other platforms that I'm already involved with, the NASEF, and they recently joined forces with Generation Esports, which ultimately, manages a high school esports league. And
we had on the podcast, shameless plug. It was a fun episode. Their
platform is, very friendly to kind of fix the complaints of a lot of other, maybe Playverses, for example, where you can kind of queue in. I'm sure they talked about all that, queuing up for a match and not having to deal with a lot of, for, I guess, people not showing up. But yeah, it's exciting space to be in high school space. Lots of opportunity for all kinds of business, platforms, education, technology, and more importantly, I would say a lot of opportunity for kids to use the thing that they love, and for teachers and organizations to teach kids through those things. Football is a great sport, but really what people learn through football is life lessons that they can take away, and esports can be that for high school as well.
Wes, can we just pivot back quickly to one thing I wanted to touch on, Jimmy, unless you wanted to, you had a question on this line here.
No, it wasn't on this line. I also wanted to, but I'll let you take the lead, and I think we're going to head in the same direction.
Well, I wanted to pivot back on the comparison to like Nike and Under Armour from your business specifically, because I'm fascinated by sort of the performance apparel aspect of gaming, right? Like the idea that wear this, use this, and it'll make you, 3% better or 5% better. Like literally, I think the very, 300 episodes ago when we started, I think our first episode, it's something we talked about where, I'm a big golfer, and the golf market in terms of apparel and things and equipment fascinates me because people will pay through the nose for anything that has the potential to make them even slightly better.
Mhm.
How are you guys thinking about sort of the performance piece of it? Because I liked the comparison to Nike, Under Armour.
Mhm.
Is it just like look good, feel good, play better, or are you thinking about it in more, specific ways?
Well, on a high school level, I think it's very important for kids to get jerseys for their team, and to wear
Totally.
jerseys. Yeah, for kids that are going to be competitive in esports. A lot of these kids don't have the opportunity to maybe be on the baseball team or the football team, and finally they're able to sit down and play a game and be competitive and be a part of a team that they can maybe even letter in, like you can in the state of Georgia, where we have the athletic the group GHSA, has esports, and there's a state championship, and you can get a state championship trophy in esports. And if you're going to have a program like that, those kids need to have that team feel. They need to be able to feel like they're a part of a team. I've got a jersey, I've got my number on it or my name on it, and I get to walk through on Fridays in as team day at school. I can wear my jersey and type of thing. It's important for kids to feel a part of something, and I think a jersey helps them to do that. But on the business side of things, on performance side of things, yeah, I mean, it's really about feeling good and feeling to be a part of something. That's what people really like to do.
So I wanted to also
Jimmy,
get
go ahead.
into, as we're talking about brand building, right, and the different applications of that brand. As a business, I know you guys have been involved with the Esports Business Summit. You're obviously, the provider for the Esports Awards this year.
Mhm.
Congratulations with that. That's coming up this weekend, and I think a lot of our listeners will hear this episode either shortly before or shortly thereafter
Mhm.
over the next week. How important is it to your business to, I suppose, get involved with these organizations, with these summits and conferences and events, where you're not just going after or taking the conversation to students and schools and teams, but you're also, again, very active in the business community.
Mhm.
I was curious, I suppose, the business that you generate from participating in events such as that, again, in the sense of procuring advice for our listeners that are 20 years behind in their careers than you are, and
Mhm.
hopeful to make up some of that gap, in their own learning.
Yeah, well, I guess our approach from a business perspective initially was more of a B2B one, right? And so, yeah, doing business with other businesses and going to these B2B conferences has been a big deal. And, we're slowly and methodically moving toward a more consumer based kind of drive. And next year is a good example of that, as we have partnered with Unified. Unified has a really cool road. They're basically an esports venue that has a truck. And they take all of their equipment and just have these pop up venues. We're traveling with Unified to be their merchandise arm and partner. And so, yeah, we'll be at a lot of these events, not just business ones, but consumer ones. Our first launch, when we first started the brand in 2019, we created a corporation. We decided to make merchandise. We created chairs. We created backpacks, and then we decided, okay, we'll create merchandise for teams. We showed up at DreamHack in Atlanta, and in 2019, and no one knew who we were, but it was a great testing bed to show up, create a booth, sell merchandise, and meet a lot of people. I guess ultimately the primary objective is to build brand awareness, so we're going to hit every venue we can, get in front of as many people as you can, shake as many hands as you can. And it's making relationships and, kind of making that good first impression every time.
Definitely. Along these common themes, I suppose, and trying to get a little bit more of your wisdom and your experience out of you for our audience, not just going to these places, meeting with these people, taking it one step further or one turn, I suppose, additionally further in that direction. At Skullz, you guys started off with apparel, correct? And you branched off into chairs and backpacks and other types of merchandising. I'm curious how you choose what merch you select. Is it based off of margins? Is it based off of popularity? Is it based off of just you as an owner and what you think is cool and want to be involved with? What I suppose directs those decisions?
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a trap if you trying to go for what you think is cool. It's a big trap, But especially for me, I'm old, now. What I think is cool, my audience, my target audience might not think is nearly as cool, So definitely doing some research, but initially it was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? We want to be everything that a gamer wants. Okay. I'm in esports, I'm playing games. What do I need? You need, chairs. What's the backpack for? Well, we're, going for schools, you need laptops, carrying machines around, going to LAN parties. What do we need? So obviously just trying to fill a need, but also build a brand. And so I think a good business concept between that is, all right, filling a need and building a brand. How do we do those things? And what stuff do we make to kind of grow that? We kind of shied away recently from the chairs. I love the chairs. People love the chairs, think it's cool, but the chair market is pretty saturated right now. And there's a higher cost of entry, a large cost of entry and right now, especially with the supply chains kind of messed up with shipping and transporting goods, especially like containers from manufacturers. It's like, maybe we'll stay away from the chairs for a minute. Unfortunate because they are really good. And we might get back to that, but so we decided after about a year to stick with the apparel. I think Skullz is a great brand, but we want to go from not just shirts and hoodies and stuff, but everything apparel, which is anything that you essentially wear. Hats. What better brand name can you think of for a hat than Skullz, right? It's a great name for a hat brand.
I'm surprised you guys haven't done more there.
Yeah. We'll get there.
But the chair thing is interesting, right? We sort of jokingly on the live stream talk often about all the sort of things happening in the gaming chair market because, everyone's buying gaming chairs these days. Mm-hmm. But I always felt like it's got to be a tough business behind the scenes, right? You're shipping something really massive, or relatively, larger than shipping a T-shirt or a jersey. Mm-hmm. Like it's got to be a bit of a logistical nightmare, and everyone expects free shipping these days, and I assume it's maybe more trouble than it's worth, or.
Well, we want to be higher end too, so it's like, okay, well, you're gonna spend $500 almost on a nice gaming chair at the minimum, and so we did some really good chairs. We called the MOAC, the mother of all chairs. Yeah, and they're great chairs. People love them, but I don't know. Yeah, the margins aren't quite as high, and whenever you're not at venues selling them, it's harder to do online. Like you said, you have to ship them and everything. I think maybe once the supply chain issues kind of get resolved, and if there's a demand for chairs, Skullz chairs, maybe we do some more of those. But yeah, margins are a big deciding factor in what you do. Hats are easy, but we really, I really want to, move also into, doing more with shoes. From a gaming perspective, I think it'd be a great way to go. But there's, again, that's a larger, there's a lot of shoe sizes, so you gotta get a ton of shoes. A hat, you can do a snapback, it's like one size really. But with shoes, you got to get a ton of inventory, and here we are back in the supply chain issues. But
Wes, one last question for you from me, and that is, we spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about, my term hoodie orgs, and I've got flack for calling, esports, some of the esports teams hoodie orgs, and 100 Thieves to me is like one of them, right? Which is their primary business model is selling apparel. Like, yeah, they're happy if they win this championship or that tournament or whatever, but a lot of their business model is built on these drops and the apparel and the whole bit, right? And that's not uncommon in the industry. Is your view that even some of the best who really, even as esports teams, they call themselves lifestyle and apparel companies, are not doing sort of e-commerce at the level they should be? Like that fundamentally, even the ones who think they're specialized there are not doing it in a way that you guys could do it for them, right? Like that it should fundamentally be an outsourced function for most of these esports teams. Is that how you think about the industry in your mind?
Absolutely. Whenever I knew that, 100 Thieves, even early on, of course it's early on and they have a lot of work and didn't have a lot of resources, but they were big enough to get $30 million of cash dropped on them. And then to do a hoodie drop, their website was like, okay, we're going to do this hoodie drop. And it's the only product they're offering. And it's going to drop. And then they sell out of them in, X amount of time. I think that's an interesting business model, but I don't think it should be exclusively the business model. I know that 100 Thieves has learned that over these past couple of years and has kind of moved more into a little bit larger scale. But yeah, I mean, the power of that brand is great. Doing the drops is great. But, I've also been on the other end of, like I said, a website that's doing, 10,000 orders a day. And $20 million a month, and it's not from like one or two products. They have a catalog of 10,000 variations of products on the website. But that's the power of a brand as it expands, and I think 100 Thieves is probably kind of setting the pace in the esports area. But yes, they're still falling flat in the e-commerce in how they're doing e-commerce and fulfilling that.
Wes, I think it's a very interesting take. I want to get one more take out of you because you mentioned at the beginning you were a Battlefield 1942 guy. I know you weren't you didn't mention Call of Duty, but we're not going to cover this news story here. We're going to cover it on the live stream, but the sources, like all the reports coming out, say this Call of Duty is the worst in the last 14 years. And they're blaming it on, simultaneous launches of new Halo, new Battlefield. In this COD, Battlefield, and Halo sort of simultaneous launch all in the same season, which one are you most excited about? Are you surprised that COD suffered here?
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised there's a huge fan base, but I think I think even their own fan base is kind of upset. It's not like their fan base went and bought, they went out and bought Halo instead of COD. They're going to buy COD, so they bought it. They weren't satisfied with with the result of it. And from what I understand, my son tells me a little bit about. I've not been a COD player myself, but he was like, "Yeah, the people. I think they went to a different studio to do the production of the game, and it just didn't didn't work out. But for me, I've never been on either one of those, Halo or COD. I've always been a very strong PC gamer, and I've never been a really good shot. So head clicking has never been my thing. So because of that, I've always been I'd gravitate to those games that have roles involved where you can be a support or a tank or something. And I love team-based games because I play basketball and I love being a part of a team and just being, doing that. So, but games like COD and even Counter-Strike, I was never good at it, but I played because people, they were playing that a lot. But as soon as there were games out, like I love Overwatch. Overwatch is kind of I think Overwatch 2, maybe Overwatch 2 will actually, kind of spring back Overwatch. But I can tell you at this LAN party that we had, there was a ton of Overwatch going on.
It'll be exciting to see when it comes out in 2035 what what effect it has on the industry. I mean, it takes a long time for them to make new skins. No, Wes, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being on the podcast. If people want to find you, follow Skullz, like where do you want to be followed or found?
We're on all the platforms with at Skullz Gear, making that easy. So Twitter, especially Facebook, obviously, Instagram, even Twitch. We're not super active on Twitch. But follow us and check us out, skullz.com, SKULLZ.com.
Love it. Very cool. What you guys are doing is very cool. Thank you for being on the podcast, Jimmy. Thank you as always. For our listeners, guys, just like I said, if you love the podcast, tell your friends about it, leave a review. It helps spread the word. It helps drive the growth that this podcast has seen. Definitely follow us everywhere. We're Busy Sports or Business of Esports just about everywhere, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok, YouTube, wherever you get our content. We really appreciate it. And as always, guys, we will see you next week.
Thanks.